TG Geeks, episode 160, March 12th, 2018. Barbara the Fanbase Barber presses Bryant on the Oscars. Hello and welcome to another webcast from tggeeks.com, where Ben and Keith, the two gay geeks, talk about all aspects of geekdom and nerdery, sci-fi, comics, film, horror genre. You name it, we talk about it. I'm Keith Lane, and we're coming to you from TG Squared Studios in lovely, kind of spitting rain-ish Phoenix, Arizona.
And I'm Ben Raggington, also coming to you from Winter Returned.
Well,
Again, for a weekend.
Actually, this is kind of like a spring rain. Spring rain. It didn't get cold.
No, it didn't
just
reach.
sprinkled.
It stayed below 80.
Yeah.
Phoenix, Arizona.
Yeah. And we have an interesting interview for you today, and a couple of follow-up items, as always, and some interesting discussion in the second segment. So this first segment is Barbara and Bryant Dillon from Fanbase Press, and we're going to just get right to it. Joining us this time on the show, we have Barbara and Bryant Dillon of Fanbase Press. They are the co-founders of this wonderful organization that produces comics and you name it. They produce it. That could be.
That's a nice little.
That could be their trademark.
Trademark,
since ours is you name it, we talk about it. They can trademark that.
Yeah, you name it, we produce it.
Welcome to the show, Barbara and Bryant.
Thank you so much, Keith and Ben. It's lovely to chat with you.
Yes. Yeah. So tell us a little bit about who you are as individuals and how you kind of got started in this business of producing comics, etc. And what is Fanbase Press? So I know that's a big thing there, but
we will do our best.
Yes.
So Bryant and I, as well as a friend of ours, Sam Rhodes, all met in college. We were all big fans of comic books. We were fans of the arts. We were studying or participating in theater and acting in some capacity. And after kind of growing up together in college, we all moved out to Los Angeles together to pursue creative endeavors. And that's when we decided to make our first graphic novel. It was called Something Animal. It started as a short film screenplay, and given the large amount of money that it takes sometimes to make films, we thought, we love comic books. Let's try the sequential art medium in order to bring the story to life. And it actually took off, and we hit the ground running with that adaptation. It was received very well. We followed it up soon after with another adaptation, which was Identity Thief. Both were horror graphic novels. And we just had such great success with them that we were very fortunate that other creators started bringing their stories to us to publish. And that was kind of the basis for Fanbase Press. Not only did we publish, though, in the meantime, as the production process for creating a graphic novel can be quite lengthy, we started building our own online community by doing daily reviews and interviews. We started recording a podcast that discussed the latest geek news, and it kind of built from the ground up from there.
Wow, that's incredible. So is this now your full-time job, or are you doing?
Sadly, it's not.
No, we both have day jobs.
Oh, darn. So do we.
We sympathize.
We would love to get to the point where one day Fanbase Press is our main gig, but right now Bryant and I both actually work in different facets of entertainment. I work at Warner Brothers. Oh. Bryant works at Deluxe Entertainment. But we kind of have two full-time jobs between the two of us. So, but it's a labor of love because we both love Fanbase Press and the comic book industry so much.
Yeah. Do you find that working, the nature of your full-time jobs being what they are? I mean, Keith and I both work in healthcare. So to come to we do that and then we dedicate our time here. I mean, it really seems like just this huge shift in thinking what we have to do. But being that you guys are both in the entertainment industry in some facet or another as your day jobs, do you find that to be does that help fuel the passion to further fan-based press? Does it actually get in the way? I mean, I just think this is fascinating that your daytime jobs would have some sort of a connective thread to fan-based press and what that does.
I think it does definitely do that in some occasions. There are moments where certain things are inspirational. I would say more for probably Barbara being on the Warner Brothers lot and sort of seeing these big productions go up and sort of the creative juices flowing. But our positions tend to be fairly technical. And so a lot of what we're doing at the most, I would say what it relates to in regards to what we're doing with fan-based press is sort of organizational, time management, project coordination skills where we're, making sure that creative deadlines are met and that the project is moving forward, which is, obviously very, very helpful when it comes to comic books because
oh my gosh, yeah.
Comic book creators are notorious for being behind schedule. So are editorial teams, I will say. So, I mean, being able to have a rein on that and sort of see, whether it's seeing how these bigger organizations work really, really successfully, or whether it's seeing how certain things fall through the cracks, I think that is very helpful in sort of looking at our own organization and making sure that it runs smoothly and successfully.
And I would actually be interested to hear your experience as well. Prior to working at Warner Brothers, I worked in the mental health community. And even that was helpful, I would say, or impactful to our work with fan-based press because we do a lot of panel conventions and we speak to a lot about the creative process and the impact that it can have on an individual. And, healthy self-care practices and those sorts of mentalities have really even been helpful from the education and information that I learned from mental health. So I'm sure that in some capacity, working in the healthcare community has also likewise helped you in your endeavors.
Right.
Well, we're both, we're not well, you would explain?
Yeah, my job is, I do implementation of software. So I teach people how to use a couple of different pieces of software for analytics purposes and mostly reimbursement. And so that kind of helps because I kind of am a teacher at heart. So it helps me to kind of put things and it kind of gives me the analytical. I kind of manage the website and all that kind of stuff. And Ben really
I'm a claims supervisor, also a trainer. So in that respect, I mean, as far as being a trainer goes, I always get up in front of a class and I hop around like some sort of loon as I educate people on how to handle hospital claims. But really, I mean, how my job informs and dovetails into what we do here is that I can't wait to run away from my job whenever there's a big convention going on. I don't have to go to work. I mean, it pushes me. It pushes me towards more things TG Geeks. So there it is.
Yeah. I think the teaching aspect has made us very comfortable in
behind the mic, at least
behind the mic and being able to speak to people and to be able to drag information out of them, I suppose. in interview situations.
Yeah.
So that's kind of interesting.
Right.
We were echoing your sentiments.
Yeah.
Okay. So tell me obviously, if anybody listened to our episode last week, they know what your big project is. But if they didn't listen, tell us what's going on with Fan-Based Press. What new things have you got going on right now, and what's imminently being released, etc.
Absolutely. So we recently announced the upcoming publication of our newest graphic novel. It's a creator-owned book called The Margins. It is co-written by Paul Montgomery and David Acampo and illustrated by the absolutely wonderful Amanda Donahue. And the subject matter of the graphic novel is that it really examines the duality of creativity in that it can both serve as a healthy outlet for self-expression, but it can also serve as sort of a mechanism through which people can avoid or escape their lives. So, and this story is the life of a young woman named Charlie, as she finds this old pulp manuscript, and she's a comic book artist, so she starts to really get engrossed and obsessed with bringing this story to life. But as she does so, she starts to notice that the story and the characters that she is creating start to seep into her own world. So, but it's a really interesting story with a lot of really wonderful parallels about finding yourself and acknowledging who you are, and using creativity as a mechanism for that.
Yeah, it was really a great conversation we had with him. There were so many different aspects to that I really enjoyed it. The moment you sent me the press release on that, I read through it and looked at that artwork, and it was like, oh my gosh, I have to jump on this.
Yeah. And one of the things that we really liked about it is that it has it really touches on a lot of interesting issues. As you said, it talks about the duality. There's this social relevance to it. So in some ways, it kind of the graphic novel has kind of graduated out of just being a form of entertainment, and in a way, it's sort of becoming a statement. So what that makes me wonder is, with a lot of the publications that you run, do you actively look for things that are maybe considered a little less mainstream or commercial, and looking for things that are a bit more, I don't necessarily want to say avant-garde, but definitely stand out against the crowd?
I would say definitely. We aren't necessarily what I would say, a company or a comic company that looks to preach at our audience. But at the same time, one thing that Barbara and I have discussed at length, and feel free to jump in here, Barbara, about what exactly a fan-based press comic is and what kind of stories you want to tell. I think we have always gravitated to genre fiction that has exploration of deeper themes and characters. I mean, sort of a fluffy popcorn movie is a lot of fun, but then when you compare it to something, I would say like Star Wars, which I would also consider a popcorn movie, the fact that there are these, like, say, themes of like family and fathers and sons and moral choices, those are really what we find engaging about stories like that. Another one I usually compare stories we're looking for to is I'm a huge fan of the Alien franchise. There are many films out there that can tell stories about creatures in space being fought, but that's not really the key of why those stories engage with me. It's more about the exploration of a really complex female lead, themes of corporate ownership and moral choices made in sort of the worst situations. So I think we look for similar things in the stories that we tell. We don't necessarily put other people that operate this way down, but personally, we're not looking for stories that sort of end at the concept of like, oh, something sci-fi happened or something, fantastical happened. We want to see the genres exploring themes that relate to the real world and that we feel are important. And I think even more so, since the last presidential election, we really felt like the power that we have to put good out into the world, or to be able to add something decent to a world that some seemingly is very often indecent. I think that came from a place where we're like, well, this is our gift. We can help people tell stories, and those stories should matter in some ways. They should either contribute to a larger goal, or at least get people to think about some things that maybe they're not thinking about, or be inspired by things maybe they're not being inspired about. So there's definitely some of that within the DNA of the company.
I totally agree. And I think the biggest thing is we sometimes boil what a fan-based press book is down to, we want really impactful storylines with resonant characters. So hopefully all of the titles that we are releasing maintain that through line. But in addition, there's the idea of inclusivity, not only with the characters that we are sharing, the storylines being told, but also the creators themselves. We really want to have the opportunity to provide a platform to creators with varying perspectives and varying life experiences, so that not only can they share those stories that are so individualized, but also so that readers can see themselves in the pages and resonate with the characters. So that's it's really, really important for us.
That's what yes, absolutely. In fact, I was going to say that. I mean, even though the character of Charlie in the margins, even though she's a lesbian, the fact that it's still your main character is someone in the LGBT community, and obviously an opposite gender for me, it still gave me something that I could totally latch onto, and almost in some aspect say that could have been me in there.
Yeah.
And I like that kind of connection. I mean, I like to be able to read something that has that inclusive nature that I can actually almost project myself into the story.
Yeah.
So to have that, I think is awesome.
And that story really is very inclusive on so many levels. I mean, you have Asian, you have Latino, you have LGBT, and then they're fighting the antagonist, who is an old white guy who's a racist. So it's really.
And what's so fascinating, and I'm so excited for to read the margins, because at the outset he is this old white, a seemingly cisgendered male, but through the story there are some revelations that you learn that make such beautiful parallels, I hope, for readers that really further emphasize the themes of acknowledging sexuality, acknowledging who you are, and being comfortable with that.
Well, and complex villains too. I think, as much as I think Creed does, or Kent rather, not Creed. Creed's the the made-up character that Kent created. Kent is, he's a complex villain, and I think that's really important for us is we don't see very many people in this world, very many humans, as just 100% evil, and those villains aren't as interesting for us. So there are definitely layers to Kent that we don't want to give away, but we'll say that there is much to be revealed about him, and the only other thing I would add too is I appreciate you guys, expressing excitement about this mission. I do want to be hesitant. I just want to say, I don't want to give ourselves too much of a pat on the back, because one thing that I really feel like we are doing that isn't necessarily super impressive or exciting is trying to be more inclusive with these characters and these creators, and hopefully that is seen as less, eventually as less of an exciting thing, is more of just hey, isn't everyone doing this? Because I feel like we see, especially with the recent success of Wonder Woman and Black Panther at the box office, and some of the comics that have done really well this year, people are looking for diverse stories, and it's not just the underrepresented audiences. Clearly, they need to be catered to because they're desperate for these stories. But I think that everyone is excited, for the most part, to take part in these stories and see something new and see something different and see other people be excited that they finally got their character or stories that they can relate to very, very significantly. So
I'm glad you said that, because one of the things that I really loved about both Wonder Woman and Black Panther is that, I'm neither woman nor am I black, but why did I find both of these things so exciting? They introduced me to this culture that is underrepresented in some fashion or another, and it packaged it in such a way that it was grounded in realism but gave it such optimistic sensibility. So to be able to even read that in a book as well is something that I know that me and a lot of other readers, that's something that we can just easily gravitate towards and just digest, and wow. I love that idea.
So
thank you.
I'm not the least bit enthusiastic.
No, not at all. He can be very dramatic sometimes.
Dramatic? Gee, that sounds like such a negative.
No, it's not.
Dramatic is good.
Yes, we love the dramatic.
Yes. So
Without drama, you don't have art.
Exactly.
Oh, touche.
yeah, tell us about some of the other things that you have. I noticed that you have some books, and you have, I mean, there's all kinds of things, as well as half a dozen, almost a dozen comics that you've done. Tell us about Quince.
Mhm.
That one is one that you just are publishing in a trade paperback. So tell us about that one.
Absolutely. So last year, starting in January and through December, we released Quince, which is a 15-issue comic book series about a little girl named Lupe who gets superpowers on her quinceañera, but she only has them for 1 year. And we really stuck with the Quince theme because it was 15 issues. It came out on the 15th of every month on Comixology in both English and Spanish. And then at the end of the year, we collected all 15 of the English language comics into a collected trade paperback, which is now available for sale on our website, through Comixology, on Amazon. And we were so honored to bring this story to life. Sebastian Kadlecik, who is the creator, is Latino, and he had attended so many of his family's quinceañeras. And he saw his young nieces and was so excited that they loved characters like Wonder Woman and Batgirl, but he really wanted for them, kind of what we were talking about earlier, the opportunity to see themselves as superheroes, both inside and outside of the mask. And so he wanted to give them a superhero that represented them more thoroughly. And so we were so honored to bring this story to life. And it was written and illustrated by a sister team. It was Kit Steinkellner and Emma Steinkellner, and they were so fantastic in bringing the story to life. And we were actually very honored. Just last month, the book was one of the finalists for the 2018 Dwayne McDuffie Award for Diversity. So we were amazingly honored to receive that, and just for Sebastian's story to be in that regard, because Dwayne McDuffie did so much to further diversity in the comic book industry. So to be recognized for furthering his mission was truly
Amazing,
an honor.
yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's great. So is there anything extra with the Quince trade paperback, or is it just the paperback or trade paperback itself?
No, there's a few extras in there. We've got some extra pages at the end, and there was also one of the things. I mean, I guess this is past, but we did release it ahead of the digital release of the final issue. So there was a number of people that, if they couldn't wait for the final issue of Quince, went ahead and got the trade so that they could get a first look at it. But yeah, there's a few additional extras there in the back for you.
That's cool.
And we've got lots of other.
Go ahead.
Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry. We
Mm-hmm.
have lots of other projects in the works as well. We have another book that we will be announcing in April at the start of the month.
It's completely different than anything that we've ever done before.
Exactly.
It's not a comic book, I will say that,
Yes.
or a graphic novel. So
It'll be an interesting
Yes.
endeavor. We're very excited about it. We are finishing the writing process on an audio drama adaptation of
cool.
a novel called The Odds by Robert J. Peterson. It was published by California Cold Blood Books. And if you can imagine, it's kind of a futuristic sci-fi book akin to Big Trouble in Little China. But if you can imagine
nice.
a world where chess has become a live-action battle to the death, it's very much everything Star Wars and Firefly
And
wrapped in
Wizard's
one.
chess.
Yeah. So
now, that one's a lot of fun. It's got a lot of crazy characters. It's, as Barbara said, an action comedy, and it's also, we've done a lot of recently that have been young adult and all ages books. The Odds will actually be a little towards the more mature readers' end.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be, I guess technically it would be R-rated for some of the language and violence, but it's all in sort of like an 80s, almost like Total Recall.
Very John
like,
Carpenter-esque.
Yeah, tongue-in-cheek, sort of over-the-top way. So we can't wait to share that with people. There's so many exciting things from the characters, the writing, and we have an amazing 80s electronica influenced score that was originally produced for it. So really
cool.
excited to be able to share that with people.
I'm having a geekasm right now. Excuse me.
80s pop culture is.
Oh yeah, 80s pop culture.
we
there
can't-
was nothing like it.
we
it was the
can't
best.
wait for Ready Player One to come out. So
yeah, with things like Ready
I mean,
Player One, Stranger Things, and you mentioned you said John Carpenter, and when you said Big Trouble in Little China, I just got all the little geek boy in me just started screaming in total delight. So you said, oh, audio drama. So this is your first foray into that, correct?
Actually,
True fan-based press.
True fan-based press it is. However, we cut our teeth in audio drama a few years back. We actually did a 3-year endeavor called The Katniss Chronicles, which was a very faithful adaptation of the Hunger Games books before the movies came out.
Oh, wow.
And we adapted all 3 of the books into approximately hour-long episodes, and it was a total of about 70 episodes that covered and spanned all 3 of the books. So we had a full cast of characters, score, sound effects, absolutely everything.
And we were lucky enough to win a few audio drama awards for that and be nominated for a few things. So, I mean, we really, as Barbara said, we really did cut our teeth on it. It was an experience where you go through 3 years of creating audio dramas, you have to learn 1 or 2 things. And so we were very excited once we had done that and connected with that audience so well that we were like, well, let's do something that we legitimately have the rights to. We can do it through one of the companies, Fan-Based Press being the one that was chosen. And we're just really excited to kind of engage with people with this medium because people are sort of dipping their toes into it. There's a few fan audio dramas out there. I know that Marvel just recently put out, I think, a Wolverine. They're calling it an audio comic or something like that, but it's pretty much an audio drama. So with the rise of podcasts and how often we all listen to them, I think going from one place to the other, I think audio dramas are a natural step, and a lot of the other places in the world have already caught up ahead of us here in the States.
Yeah, so. For the Katniss Chronicles, we've got a huge international fan base everywhere from Africa to Singapore,
New
the
Zealand.
Philippines, and it's incredible how well received audio drama is in other countries, but I feel like the U.S. is lagging a bit.
Yeah,
well, I mean,
interesting.
The radio theater is making a huge comeback, I think, and I think podcasts definitely have a role in that, but now with radio dramas being digestible in a myriad of medium formats, I think has helped to give the rise. I mean, we're friends with some people who run Sword and Circuitry, and they're right now working on their second radio play.
Yeah.
So I think the idea of a radio theater kind of drama is just terribly exciting. Because there's nothing quite like theater of the mind, in my opinion. And when you've got something that's touching on so many, has so many genre beats to it. I mean, I know that is something that I would just like dive into and never want to crawl out of again.
Yeah, they're doing old time radio dramas.
Yeah, very old time.
They're sci-fi related. It's Uncharted Regions. They did their first one was wow, it was incredible. So. Yeah, the radio dramas or radio type. Dramas,
it really feels like you're listening to old time radio theater. Which, being that I'm 56, so I did grow up just at the very end of that.
Of a certain age.
Yeah, I mean, I did come in just to the very end of that era of the old time radio theater, and so again, audio dramas, I think, are just fantastic. I love them to death.
Yeah. So keep us, I know we're on your press list, but with the new things that you've got coming, let me know.
Especially the odds.
We will certainly run some press releases for you. So that's a great thing. I did want to say, and the question I asked earlier was kind of a leading question, and then we went someplace else, but that's okay. The extras that you're putting with the margins is really kind of cool.
Bonus material.
We talked about that with Paul and Amanda. He's a big bonus material.
I love bonus features on Blu-rays. I'll watch all of them.
I think it's really cool that you're doing that with your trade paperbacks, your graphic novels, everything that you've got, and continue to do that because there's people that want that stuff. It's extra stuff.
Well, it helps to kind of inform, the background, the genesis of the particular stories, possible story ideas that were looked at and then later got jettisoned. I mean, especially if it's a story that you're really invested in some fashion or another, you kind of want to know, how did this what were all the steps that were involved between its initial inception
Right.
to what's on the final, the final product. So, yeah, to have all that extra material, to me, I mean, I think it's endlessly fascinating.
So I
And
want
we're
to ask.
actually supplementing that in addition to the pre-order bonus material. We relaunched or launched for the first time a series on our website called Creating Fandoms, which is a
Yes,
monthly
that's
series
true.
that really does exactly what you're talking about. We delve into the creative process of publishing for our company. So the next 2 months are going to be focusing on the margins.
Yeah.
And
cool.
this month, actually March 7th, we'll have an article. Brian, do you want to talk
Yeah,
about it?
we're going to be, as Barbara mentioned, this is about like doing exactly what you guys talked about, pulling the curtain back and giving people extra information. The first Margins edition of Creating Fandoms is going to focus on basically breaking down the characters, explaining and introducing the characters to our readers, and giving a little more insight behind them. Then the following volume, we're still working out the details, but we'll dive a little bit more into the actual inspiration behind creating the Margins, why Paul and David had the initial thought to create it, what happened once Amanda, the artist, Amanda Donahue, was brought in. So we will be giving a lot of insight into that experience, and I think that, to relate to what you were saying, I think that's very much because Barbara and I are fans like yourselves who enjoy, behind the scenes featurettes and extra information and exploration of the behind the scenes process as well. And so when we approach our projects, I mean, I think that is very much in mind. We do have to, as everyone does, have to balance between like what is financially affordable, what can we actually come up with, but I'm like Barbara and I are very much like you, where we love that stuff, and so if we are creating something, we definitely want to give people access to more information if they can. We also try to bring people on for podcasts, or creators for our podcast, so they get to talk about where the creative inspiration and sort of the behind the scenes thought process came from. And the other thing that I would mention, so that people understand, I guess, is we do always include some bonus features in our trade paperbacks or our graphic novels in the back. But we also, if as we were just mentioning, if you get in early for our pre-orders, much like a Kickstarter or a crowdfunding campaign, there are additional extras that you can get. If you pre-order in advance, the Margins has a few of those, like an exclusive sketch from the artist, and we also have Paul and David working on a few literary bonuses that include some additional story material. So that's really exciting. That's not something we've done previously, so that'll be really fun to offer to people who pre-order in advance as well.
Yeah, that's really cool. As Ben is fond of saying, if the magician shows me how to do the trick, it makes it even more.
I love it even
incredible.
better.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I want to see behind the scenes. I want to see how they do it and what they do with it.
because it helps me to appreciate
yeah.
the effort that went into creating that illusion in the first place.
Yeah, so we're kind of in that camp. Some people say, I don't want to know. I don't want to know.
That's my mother.
Yeah.
Don't ruin it for me. I know. I mean, it's like we go into the haunted. I mean, we could go into like Disney's Haunted Mansion, and Mom does not want to know how the ballroom with the dancing ghosts is done. No, I want to know how it's done, so that when I do the ride again, it's like, wow, that is some brilliant magic or brilliant technology that they're doing to just blow me away. Yeah, I love that kind of thing.
Yeah. So tell me, and I don't want to open the floodgates for people to inundate you with, requests, but how do you decide what you're going to pick up and what you're going to produce, and what is that process that you use so that people, like I said, they don't inundate you? Obviously, you have a process, and I think Paul said that it was at Comic-Con that they approached you, and apparently you were in one of those sessions where people could pitch ideas to you. So What is that process for you?
Sure. For us, as a smaller publishing company, as you mentioned, we would love to be able to publish absolutely everyone's
Sure,
work,
yeah.
but given our limited resources, we like to make sure that our focus, our time, our finances are allotted equally to projects so that we are not overextending ourselves and thereby underserving
yeah.
the projects that we have.
In other words, you haven't won the lottery yet.
Exactly. So we will always accept submissions for projects at any stage of the creative production process. The best thing for people to do is to email me, and my email is Barbara, which is spelled like Barbara Streisand. It's Barbra @fanbasepress.com. And you can always email me your project. What we generally ask people to send is a treatment of the project, a sample script if you have one, or a first issue if it's further along in the process. Generally speaking, we do tend to gravitate towards projects that are at or near completion. However, we have, as with the margins, developed stories from the script process on. So there's no definitive, we're not an image type company where you have to have the book completed before you can submit it. And likewise, even in the event that we, for any reason, are unable to publish a project, it's my intention that we always provide resources to creators, whether it be me offering recommendations for other publishers that might be a good fit for their project.
Oh, cool.
If it's discussing the production process in comparing if you want to approach other publishers versus publishing. As we talked about, we do a lot of convention panels about the self-publishing process. So we always try to provide creators with, even if it's just answering questions about how do I about this, what's the next step in the process. We always want to be a resource for people. So we never want to, let creators hesitate to email us, because we're always happy to be of assistance in any capacity that might be, even if it's not publishing creators' works.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
It's nice that you're open to that. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. I was just basically saying, Barb, everything you said is right.
It's really neat that you guys are open to that, because, and being a smaller publishing company, you can do that, I suppose. If you're big and, have a market that's out there that's an exclusive market, I suppose you can be a little more choosy, but it's good that you will look at people's work and then provide some kind of feedback to them.
Well, I think,
and that's great.
I think in some ways, you are mirroring the entire entertainment industry as to what we're seeing these days. I mean, and I tell this to a lot of people that many times I'll go to a film festival that's just loaded with independent movies, and yet I will go to then next day I'll go to a major theatrical release from a big studio and think it's just garbage. Not casting any aspersions to Warner Brothers, of course not. No, but no, I have experienced that. So I think it's really great that with a company like Fanbase that it can actually go out there and look for those things that maybe a big publishing company like DC or Marvel, Dark Horse, that they might turn their nose up at, and not really give it a chance because they've for whatever big business reasons that they may have, so it's nice that a company like yours is willing to go out and and take a look at what big companies might view as being the riskier product.
Yeah, and for us, it really goes back not only to our mission of, providing more inclusive creative teams, storytelling, characters, but our tagline for the company is that we celebrate fandoms and create new ones. And for us, celebrating fandoms comes in many different forms, and creators, there are so many talented creators out there that, may not be established creators, but that doesn't make the value of their work any less or any more diminished than anyone else's who might work at a Marvel or DC. And sometimes it really just comes down to access and having the opportunity and a platform to show their work to other people. So sometimes it might be a riskier option to give an opportunity to a new or less experienced creator, but sometimes those are the most amazing stories. They're the most
it's amazing.
genuine. Yeah.
Yeah, there's
It's
really
why people walk this alley, it's like I feel like they do want to meet famous artists, but there's a lot of people that go there because they like discovering stories that they've never seen before or different takes on things.
Yeah.
And for Barbara and I think maybe where the kernel of this is, and don't let me speak for you if you disagree, but having a stage theater background where you, I don't know how many people who are listening are really familiar with the process or the world of stage theater, but there's not a lot of money in it. You have to really love the craft of acting and putting on a play and playwriting to really like get invested in it. And there's no guarantee that because there's money behind it, or it's bigger, or more well financed, it's going to be better. Some of the most purest, most fulfilling stage theater experiences in my life have been in the smallest, most no-name theater with a bunch of students putting on something and discovering something creatively that just wasn't there and blows you all away. And I think. It's whether that is something of interest to you. For us, it is. We love comics. We love the medium. And if we can leave geekdom better than we found it when we first showed up here, I think that will be important to us. It might not be important to everyone who gets involved in this, but for us, that would be a worthwhile thing to accomplish.
Right. Well, that's one of our has become one of our missions, is to support independent creators, because we found, and we say this on every single episode in our follow-up items, we found that there is a tremendous amount of talent that doesn't get the fame and the fortune, but they produce some of the most incredible work with zero money.
Sure.
And it's amazing. So that's why we love to celebrate independent creators, and we have a passion for that now. It's kind of, we'd love to do big name interviews and all that kind of stuff. And
I would love to interview Stan Lee or Chris Evans, or those people. I would dig that so badly. But at the same time, through this mission of ours that we've just kind of fallen into, it's given us an opportunity to talk to some truly amazing individuals.
Yeah.
So and we applaud you, both of you, for doing what you're doing in helping to see this creative talent get out there, so that other people will recognize and appreciate the stuff that's really there. There's just a lot of talent out there that otherwise would just get completely ignored. So,
well, and I have to echo the same thing to both of you. That thank you for the work that you do and giving a platform to independent creators to share their work. And I, as we were talking about off air before the podcast, I think it goes to creating the sense of community that is a part of geekdom as well. Because as we were saying, it's such a small community, and getting to know creators the way that we do, just at interactions at conventions, hearing each other's podcasts, it really does so much to cement those relationships and to further build the community.
Right. Absolutely.
So for anybody who wants to know more about Fanbase Press, where they can find the various publications, and any kind of social media presence, on the internets, or the intertubes, interwebs, Twitters, the Facebooks, the Instagrams. Where can people find you, and in all different various mediums of social media?
Sure. You can find us at our website, which is fanbasepress.com. We are on Facebook at Fanbase Press. We are on Twitter at Fanbase_Press. We're on Instagram at Fanbase Press. We have various different iTunes channels for all of our podcasts, but you can access those through the website. We have our own YouTube channel for when we do convention or red carpet interviews. So basically everywhere except MySpace, I think, is a safe bet to find us.
You don't have a MySpace account? Come on.
We don't have MySpace, unfortunately. But the books are available through the website and Comixology as well.
Yes.
Oh, cool.
Fantastic.
So that is really great. And thank you for being on the show, Barbara and Bryant Dillon of Fanbase Press.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you for having us.
Hi, this is Barbara.
And Bryant Dillon of Fanbase Press.
And you are listening to the Two Gay Geeks.
And here's a few selected birthdays for March 12th through March 18th, 2018. March 12th, Liza with a Minnelli.
Liza with a Z.
Liza with a Z Minnelli.
Youch.
Liza with a Minnelli.
Liza with a Minnelli. Sounds like a food item.
Yeah. And also Agent 99.
Barbara Feldon.
Barbara Feldon. And also Jack Kerouac, who was kind of the one of the instigators of the hippie movement, although he distanced himself from that
I had
later
no
on.
idea about that.
He was actually part of what's called the Beat generation, but that was the precursor to the hippie movement.
Oh, okay,
So,
okay.
also, March 13th, Al Jaffe, most notably cartoonist for Mad Magazine. William H. Macy, and Mr. Dianetics himself, L. Ron Hubbard. Also on
No
March
comment.
No comment. March 13th. The littler said the best.
Yes.
Also on March 13th, good friend of ours from San Diego, Pia Thrasher, who's a filmmaker in her own right. Really, and fascinating.
Great artist.
Her artwork is incredible.
Fabulous artwork.
Also on March 13th, Lathrop Preston, also known as Lathe to us from the previous days elsewhere. March 14th, James Frayne.
Sarek.
Yes, as well as other things.
Right.
Billy Crystal, Albert Einstein, and Mike O'Kane.
I got nothing.
You got nothing.
I got nothing.
Michael Caine.
Right.
He tells a story about people talking about him.
Oh,
and
Mike O'Kane.
Mike O'Kane, yes.
If you want to sound like Michael Caine, all you got to do is say Michael Caine.
Yes. Also on March 14th, Diane Arbus, famed photographer, and Graham Skipper, who was a filmmaker that we know from the
Beyond
L.A.
the Gates.
Yeah, and Beyond the Gates in the L.A. area. March 15th, David Cronenberg, a director of...
Some really sick horror films.
Yeah. Also, Sean Biggerstaff.
Or as girls like to say, Sean, show me your bigger staff.
Yeah, there you go.
Oi.
Yeah. March 15th, Saint Nicholas was born in 270 AD.
Wow. He's looking
Amazing.
good.
Yeah, he certainly is. Also, Judd Hirsch, whose career kind of made a resurgence here in his later years.
Yeah, good for him.
A couple of different programs that he was on. March 16th, Todd McFarlane, Alan Tudyk, and Victor Garber. March 17th, Nat King Cole.
Was a very old... Whoops.
No, he was a very nice man.
Very nice man.
Yes. We have a friend of ours whose mother passed away a number of years ago, but she used to tell a story, a couple of stories that were big, quote-unquote, stories.
In other words, like tall tales?
Tall tales, yes. That somebody said something about Nat King Cole, and she said he was such a nice man. And then also tells us,
it gets worse.
tells us a story about Martin Luther King Jr.
Oh, yeah.
But anyway, so that was neither here nor there. She told those stories, and Brendan kind of
smiled
at her eulogy. It was like, yeah, I can just see her. She walks into the pearly gates and say, "Hi, Nat. Hi, Martin."
With a cigarette in her hand.
Yeah, with a cigarette in her hand. Anyway, may turn out that she actually did know those people.
Well, it turns out some of those stories have some credibility to them. So Brendan's
yeah.
thinking like, oh my God, was Mom actually right on that?
Exactly. Also on March 17th, Kurt Russell and John Boyega. March 18th, we have Brad Dourif, Vanessa Williams, Queen Latifah, Peter Graves, and I ran across this one and I had to put it in here, Lillian Vernon. If anybody from years past, it lists her as an entrepreneur. If anybody knows the Lillian Vernon catalog that used to come out, my grandmother shared that with my sister. It was the precursor, I think, to Sky Mall. It had anything and everything and all the crap that you could never need. So,
wow, that kind of really puts her ahead of the time.
Oh, yeah. This was in the 60s and early 70s that we used to get this Lillian Vernon catalog. Also on March 18th, Nikolai Rimsky-Korsakov, who wrote quite a few things, and you listen to it and you say, is that Scheherazade?
Is that Scheherazade?
Yeah. No, that's not Scheherazade. That's somebody else completely.
Yeah.
So yeah, Rimsky-Korsakov had this knack for writing things that sounded like everybody else. He had just the genre. He was kind of the Michael Giacchino of his day.
Ah, very chameleon-like.
Yeah, and also. On March 18th, last but not least, Ms. Margaret Juntwaite, who was the...
She was the voice of the Med-Opera channel.
Med-Opera Radio,
on Sirius XM.
Yeah, and died a couple of years ago.
What a tragedy.
She was a wonderful...
So awesome.
Yeah, she was so personable.
She was so accessible. I mean, anybody could write to her and chat with her about opera, and she would actually do live blogging during live broadcasts at the opera. I mean, she was amazing.
Yep. And that's it for the birthdays this time.
Hi, this is Barbara Dillon, one of the co-hosts of Fanbase Press's flagship podcast, The Fanbase Weekly. During the Fanbase Weekly podcast, the co-hosts and I discuss the top geek news stories of the week. In each episode, we are joined by special guests from all across the pop culture spectrum to get their take on what's happening in geekdom. Past guests have included Jeffrey Thorne, writer of Leverage and The Librarians, DC All Access's Jason Inman, Debbie Lynn Smith of Chimera Press, Xena Warrior Princess executive producer Stephen L. Sears, Ashley V. Robinson of Geek History Lessons, and many, many more. Join us for an episode of the podcast that celebrates fandoms on a weekly basis. A new episode of the Fanbase Weekly is released every Monday. Be sure to subscribe to us on iTunes or look for the podcast at fanbasepress.com.
Go give a listen to our friends Barbara and Bryant Dillon over at Fanbase Weekly. And now, it's time for what?
For me to just nod my head in time. And for Keith to start playing with the mixer board. Yeah, I don't trust you with that. As long as your hands are near that board, I don't trust you. So interestingly enough, that we should just hear from Barbara, because starting off the feedback, this is for episode 159, last week's episode. We got some feedback from Barbara, and she says, thank you for your support of Fanbase Press and the margins.
Absolutely.
We're happy to supply that.
It was a great interview with Paul and Amanda.
Absolutely. Yeah. And then we got a comment from Arkle, and he says, I'm all for TG Geeks Studios expanding. Have you guys considered Patreon? It has its faults, but nearly all the creators I follow these days that aren't backed by a major television network or movie studio have one, and I would give to a lot of them if I had steady income. That's something that's not a
We've thought about it.
We've thought about it. We're not dismissing it wholeheartedly yet, but we're not ready to cross that bridge yet.
Yeah, we haven't figured out what we would
we've got to offer something
return as an
subscribers.
offering to the subscribers.
Yeah,
so.
I have no idea what.
Yeah.
And he continues, regarding the Incorrect Voyager Quotes blog, don't give me too much credit. The quotes themselves all come from various sources: cartoons, video games, other TV shows, movies, internet reviews, shows, etc. The original source is always included in the tags. I and other submitters simply put those words in the mouths of the Voyager characters. For instance, the most recent ones, as of when I'm writing this, the ones above the 7 times Sam aesthetic, a fan of my Voyager fanfic made for me, come from Bob's Burgers and Mass Effect 3. I was inspired to create the Voyager one after being a big fan and occasional contributor to the Incorrect Voyager blogs for Atop the Fourth Wall and Power Rangers. Okay, and then moving on, we had some feedback from a John Downey last week, and we thought maybe he might have been Hamish's brother. Turns out he's Hamish's uncle.
Yeah, and there was kind of a back and forth between Hamish.
There was a back and forth,
John.
but John offered one cute little story that I thought was cute and we wanted to include here. He says, I was at the final performance of Marlene Dietrich when she collapsed at the piano. Her constant companion rushed to her aid and covered her up until the medical people arrived. I remembered her famous mink coat was carefully folded and taken care of. End of a memorable night.
Yeah,
To
wow.
say the least. And then we had a couple of reviews that went out for A Wrinkle in Time. And my review got a couple of comments back. First one from a good personal friend of ours, Ari Marino. She writes, "Oh, no!" Hashtag sadness. And then good friend of the show, Hamish Downey, he writes, this is the absolute definition of a mixed review.
Yeah, it was.
And he's
Good
right,
and
it
bad.
was.
Good and bad. Good
And
and bad. Hot
there
and
was
cold.
some good and there was some bad. That's all I can
What
say
does it
about
want to be?
Yeah, well, hey, I was being honest. There were some good things.
Yeah,
there were some bad things.
Exactly.
I mean,
Yeah.
And then last week, we also had a fantastic little review from contributor Adrian Richoff.
Andrea.
Adrian, why say Adrian? Andrea Richoff, thank you. Sorry. And she did a review for Dark Crystal. And you can see that on our website at tggeeks.com. We'll have the link for that and our other articles in our show notes.
It was a special screening.
Special screening.
Yeah.
From
35th
Fathom
anniversary,
Events.
yeah.
Exactly. And we got, again, another comment from Hamish. Bleh, I can't talk today. Hamish Downey saying, "I wish Jim Henson made more original movies like Labyrinth and Dark Crystal." I agree. And I wish the Henson Company, the Henson Studio, would make more movies. I mean, his son Brian is in charge of it now.
Well, Disney owns them now.
I know. But they're still not... Well, Disney owns Pixar. Disney owns Marvel. Yet they're still making movies.
Yeah.
So, I would like to see the Henson Company make more.
Yeah.
Anyway, moving on, got another comment from this time good personal friend, Audra Hall. She says, "I loved this movie and I have an original book too. Hashtag Fizzgig." Then we also, boy, this last week was a busy one for us.
Yeah.
We ran a first look at the Dr. Seuss The Grinch movie. And we got a comment back from my old high school friend, Donald Black, and he simply wrote, "Originality is dead."
Yeah. And there was one for Christopher Robin there.
Well, did I pass that one?
Yes.
Oh, yes, I did. I'm sorry. I scrolled a little bit too fast.
Yeah.
We also ran a first look at Christopher Robin, starring Ewan McGregor. And we got a comment from McHarry Midge Monroe, and she simply writes, "Would love to see this."
Yeah,
So would I.
it
It
looks
looks really,
interesting,
it
yeah.
does. It looks
Fascinating.
very good. And I love the guy who's voicing Pooh.
Pooh, yeah.
He sounds
certainly
so
Sterling Holloway.
He sounds
yeah.
like it's just like Sterling Holloway. It's awesome. And then we ran a new article or new column type thing. It's potpourri.
Yeah.
And this time the potpourri. We're going to talk a little bit more about the articles that we're going to be running on our website. But this potpourri article came from Hamish, and it's under the title "News Sushi: Morsel of News from Japan and Beyond." And I got a couple of comments from that. One from Kat Wardley. She says, in response to Hamish, "I'm so proud of you." And then a friend of Hamish's named Kari Taki writes, "OMG, I'm so surprised, Hamish.
Yeah.
Kiss, hug, kiss, hug, kiss, hug, kiss."
Yeah. And they were, she was
One
featured
of
in
the featured
one,
articles,
yeah.
featured people.
Featured pipples.
And then another friend of Hamish's wrote, this is Sheridan Jobbins. Sheridan writes, "A cup ramen noodle museum? Don't make me want. Genius!" And Hamish wrote back with, "Well, there's spare room in my apartment if you wish to visit."
There you go.
And that's our feedback for this week.
And we want to hear from you. If you have a comment or feedback or something you like or dislike about anything that we do, such as our podcast or on articles or anything else, please, we want to hear from you. You can do that on our website at tggeeks.com on any of the articles or any of the podcast or webcast episodes. You can do it on Facebook, on our Facebook page, TG Geek Squared Studios. Or you can do it on Twitter or any number of other places. You can even call us at our listener feedback line at 469-TG-GEEKS. It's 469-844-3357. And as always, please play nice.
You don't need to hear their identification. They're the two gay geeks. They can go about their business. Move along.
I'm waiting. Oh, jeez. Wow, that's called a cutoff. Couple of things we really want to touch on. Last Sunday, as of the recording of this episode, we had the Academy Awards.
Yeah.
Holy smokes!
What a
show!
What a show! It was really a great show.
Very, and I
loved some of the editing, the editorial things that they did, as far as showing all of the best actor nods, and it was and best actress, and all of the different clips, and the one that just made me a little verklempt was seeing Henry Fonda.
Oh yeah,
on Golden Pond, and it was just. Wow.
I mean, and the sad thing is, and it wasn't a perfect show. There were a couple of misfires here.
Exactly.
But I think there were more positive points than misfires. And to think that this was the lowest rated Academy Awards yet makes me very sad, because there was some, as you said, there was some very positive editorial things that were said here. And
some wonderful shout outs to people. It was probably the most inclusive Academy Awards celebrations in ever.
I know,
as far as people of color, of everything. I mean, a movie about a transgender woman won an Oscar.
Yeah,
it was. That's
How amazing
incredible.
Is that?
Yeah,
and I have to. Oh, I get emotional just thinking about this. I shared the video. It was a video clip. I shared it on our TG Geeks Facebook page, and it was the acceptance speech for Coco.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Darla and Darla Anderson, Adrian Molina, and Lee Unkrich, and I mean,
each of their acceptance speeches just brought me to tears.
It was wonderful. It really was.
Darla
wonderful.
thanked her wife.
Yep. And Adrian
thanked his husband.
It was incredible.
And Lee gave the greatest speech for anybody who has been disenfranchised. Yep. This award was for them.
Yep.
Wow.
It was great. And all of the speeches, I mean, nobody got too overly jumping up and down,
Frances McDermott was the most unusual, but she was just excited.
Yeah.
And I thought she actually gave a really good bit when she said, okay, everybody in the audience, women, all the women, if you won or you were nominated, stand up. And you saw like 50% of the people in the theater stand up.
Yeah, it was great.
It was phenomenal. I mean, oh God, that was my favorite Academy Awards yet.
Yeah, it really was great.
So
and we watched it on our new
60-inch
4K TV.
On our new 4K TV, and oh my God, did it look awesome!
It was incredible.
And I wanted the new TV for the Academy Awards.
Yeah,
and boy, did it look good!
It was the gay Super Bowl.
Yeah, it's the gay Super Bowl. What can I say? Absolutely.
Yep.
And then last night, wow, we had last night as of this recording. So Saturday night, March 10th, we saw the Barber of Seville with Arizona Opera.
Oh my gosh.
One of the best opera productions I've ever watched.
It was absolutely incredible. Joshua Wart did a fabulous job of directing this production. He is an up-and-coming director and happens to work for Arizona Opera full-time, but he is going
like
around
director
the country
of education,
doing all kinds of things. The things that he did with this production, as far as the audience interaction or the cast interaction with the audience, I should say, and his somewhat updated
his translation.
Yeah,
and, the surtitles were at times a bit liberal in their translations.
Yes, but it was great. It's kind of updated.
We had so much fun. The audience loved it.
Oh my gosh! They got a huge standing ovation. So it was a great production. We did 7 hours of Rossini yesterday.
Oh, man,
we saw Semiramide live from the Met. And then we had Barber of Seville last night. Barber outshined.
It did.
Semiramide,
absolutely. Barber Seville. I had more fun with Barber Seville than I did. Well, Semiramide is not a comedic opera, but I enjoyed myself overall more so with Barber, because it was just. It had an irreverence to it.
Yeah, and Barber is kind of a crazy thing.
It's a funny opera to begin with, but they updated it and made it kind of almost gave it a sense of almost relevance to today.
The voices were great.
Oh, the voices were fantastic.
One of the voices that did Dr. Bartolo, who was supposed to be an old man, was done by Calvin. Oh, shoot, what's his... I can't remember Calvin's last name, but he's part of the Marion Roos Pullen studio artist, and he's like 30-something, 30 in his early 30s. And Josh said, Calvin Griffin. Yeah, he said he's one of the youngest Dr. Bartolos.
Yeah, one of the
ever.
oldest. Yeah, youngest. Dr. Bartolo. He was phenomenal. His voice was fantastic.
Oh my gosh!
And
he
played
played the
Rossini,
part oh yeah, and the patter that he had.
Yeah, the thing is that for some reason Rossini seemed to like to really pick on bass baritones for this. They're the ones who have to do
this.
It's a really fireworky pronunciation kind of artist. Everybody else has got these really big coloratures where they jump all over the place, but the bass baritones got this. They have to spit out words so unbelievably fast and clear and in perfect time, and he nailed it.
Yep,
he was so enjoyable.
Just a great production.
It was one of
all the way around.
Man, I had such a fun time with that opera last night.
And so that's it for our second segment. We have a new segment that we're going to do here.
That was interesting.
Yeah, so this is a new segment we're going to do. It's a kind of a weekly review of what we published on the website.
Yeah, because we do have an actual website with content.
And for those of you that only listen to the webcast, we do have a website. It's tggeeks.com. We run all sorts of interesting content. And this week, some of that was we produce our episode on Monday. Monday is always the day that we release our episodes. Episode 159. On Tuesday, we didn't have anything, but we're getting ready to gear up. On Tuesday will be our books and more and
books and more review. Books and things review.
Books and things, yes.
Books and things.
More and etc.
Yeah.
And on Wednesday, we had another entry from Jeannie in our old classics newly reviewed category, and this time it was Trouble in Paradise. We had Ben's review of A Wrinkle in Time, and our first look at Christopher Robin. So we had Wednesday was a busy day.
Wednesday was a good day.
Thursday was another busy
good day.
Andrea's review of A Wrinkle in Time, a first look at The Grinch, and a new column in our potpourri category from good friend Hamish Downey, the news sushi that we talked about earlier. It's interesting morsels, or what is it, morsels of news from Japan and beyond.
Right.
So that's kind of he'll do that when he can, but we had a potpourri, had to create a potpourri category for other things that don't fit elsewhere. So then Friday, Andrea was busy this week. We had Andrea's review of Gringo,
which now makes me even more wanting to see it, because the review made it sound like everything I wanted it to be.
Yep. And then on Saturday, we had our first entry in Social Saturday. And this time we looked at Drawn to Comics in Glendale, Arizona.
That's a great store.
Yeah, you should go by and visit.
If you're in the area, check it out.
And we also had Andrea's Dark Crystal review on Saturday. Sunday, we had our first entry in our Spotlight Sunday, and we featured Brian Augustin, local Phoenix comic book legend, shall we say.
Yeah, legend, was editor for the Flash comic, had a hand in the crafting, I believe, of the Speed Force, and he's also the author of Gotham by Gaslight.
Yeah.
The book, not the movie.
And he's a really great guy. He's
fantastic.
He makes a lot of the Arizona cons as well as other things. And you should stop by and see him. He's got a quick wit and very personable, very approachable. Just has lots of interesting things at his table. So you can find all these things at tggeeks.com as well as our entries on the Facebook page. Please visit both and comment if you have something to say. And as always, we have our follow-up items. Check out our calendar on the website. If you have a birthday or a con or a film festival that anybody should know about, send us a note. We'll be glad to put it on the calendar, and we'd talk about it in this section, actually. Phoenix Film Festival, April 5th through the 15th, 2018 at Harkins Scottsdale 101. Over 250 film and 25,000 attendees over 11 days.
Oh, we're going to be busy.
Yeah, so we're sponsors this year, so come and say hi if you see us. We'll
be there in our shirts.
One of our shirts, as always. Phoenix Comic Fest, that's the new name, takes place at Convention Center, May 24th through the 27th. We will be there, so come and check it out. There's lots and lots of interesting guests this year.
Mm-hmm.
And Arizona Opera presents Das Rheingold, Richard Wagner's first opera in his epic 4-opera Ring cycle. It's playing...
Or is it his last opera?
Well, yeah.
It's the first
Since
opera...
he wrote it backwards.
Yes,
it's the first opera
of the
that's
cycle.
supposed to be performed, but it was the last opera written. Because he started with Götterdämmerung and
worked
said,
backwards.
well, we need a little more background in this, so he wrote...
He kept going and going and going.
Back and back and back. So it's playing in Phoenix, April 6th through the 8th, and in Tucson on April 14th and 15th.
Really? That's flipped.
Kind of flipped around. I saw that too, and I said, I have to go check the website and check that out.
But that really is. They're going to close the season in Tucson.
It's really weird.
Huh.
So tickets are still available at azopera.org. Check out the 3rd edition of Podcasting for Dummies, written by T. Morris and Chuck Tomasi. Go to podcastingfordummies.com. And as everybody knows, we are huge supporters of independent creators, whether it's filmmakers, comic book artists, writers, or other. Please consider supporting those independent creators. And you could consider Fanbase Press as an independent creator because they support, they kind of curate other independent creators' works and help them produce those. So they're really providing an incredible medium for independent creators. And we want to give a special shout out to our friend Teresa Corey, expert travel agent at Fairguard Mother Travel. She is a small independent travel agent specializing in all things Disney, especially Disney World, Disneyland, and the Disney cruises, as well as Adventures by Disney and the universe of Disney. Yes, when that comes out. Anyway, check out the widget on the right-hand side of the page for more info. Tell her Ben and Keith sent you, and she'll say hi.
Yes. Special shout-out to Doctor Who Talking Who on Twitter. They published the Doctor Who Fancast Guide. You can find the Fancast Guide by going to Twitter and searching for @TalkingWho. And earlier you heard feedback from Arkle. Brian Weber is his name. And on Twitter, he is known as the Human Arkle, and he posts the Arkle Times Post-Dispatch News. And you can find the Post-Dispatch News by going to Twitter and searching for @Arkle. And we mention them because they continually republish our content that we post. And you also heard Arkle in his feedback make reference to the incorrect Star Trek Voyager quotes. Check it out. It's a lot of fun. Sometimes not exactly safe for work, so you don't want your boss coming by you and seeing you having that up on your computer, because then you might lose your job, and that's not really cool.
Occasionally.
Yeah. And also, special shout out to the Facebook group, The Gay Geek, because they have a really amazing moderator named Jeremiah Reeves. He said, here, you can share your content with us as long as you talk about us. Well, we're talking about you. We love The Gay Geek because they have some really great content there with some really, really nice people. I frequent that page a lot, and you can always check it out by going to facebook.com/group/thegaygeek. You will probably have to request for access to it,
Yeah.
and the only condition is just play nicely, and you can have all the freedom there you want.
Yep.
So thank you, Jeremiah.
Yes, thank you, Jeremiah. We want to remind you to occasionally click on our Amazon ads. You can find those at the bottom of each article and on the right-hand side of the page in some of our widgets. And lastly, check us out on iHeartRadio and rate us on iTunes and subscribe to our channel, as well as subscribe to our YouTube channel. We do have a YouTube channel. It is audio only. You can listen to the webcast episodes there if you wish. We have a few people that do that and as regular listeners. So check us out, and we thank you for your support. Up next time, well, I don't know. Who knows? We'll. No, we'll have Jonathan.
That's right. We're
That's right.
going to have a special guest in the studio with us.
Yeah, Jonathan Latt. He'll join us for the whole episode.
That's going to be nuts.
That'll be craziness. So check us out next week. Okay, that should do it for this episode of TG Geeks Webcast. Be sure to check out the article for this webcast episode. We're going to have several links on the page of things that we talked about. And remember, you can comment on our Facebook page or our website, tggeeks.com, or you can leave us a voicemail at 469-TG-GEEKS. That is 469-844-3357 from TG Squared Studios. I'm Keith Lane. Thanks for listening. I bid you peace.
Cheers.